So, good morning to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us in this room. I'm grateful to everyone watching us online. While we're streaming, I'm expressing my gratitude to Ukrainian Crisis Media Center for actually providing this platform, these public discussions on very important, relevant issues. So, we've gathered this morning to discuss an issue. So the topic of our discussion, we'll talk today about imprisoned and missing civilians. This is the problem that unfortunately affects so many people. Still, there's no proper solution presented for it, and we will discuss in this room. We'll discuss the relevant issues. So we have the founders of TVP initiative here. So Tribunal for Putin, that's what we call it. So Kharkiv Human Rights Group. We have also the Center of Civic Liberties and Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union. So we will discuss today. We'll have a discussion today. We'll try to look for answers, various questions. We'll try to answer the journalist questions, and we'll try to speak of the scale, like what's happening with civilians who are held as captives after detainment. So what to do if some of your relatives or friends are in captivity now, so where you can actually get legal psychological support. And our event is taking place in both formats. We have it offline, also streamed in Facebook of Kharkiv Human Rights Group and the Center of Civic Liberties. Also, we have simultaneous interpretation today, in English, so you have that chance. Now, we'll try to look for answers for these relevant questions, like how to find those civilians and war prisoners, those people whose current location is not known. So, what can be the strategy if we can actually have the strategy to liberate those people held in captivity? So let me introduce the speakers now. We have Oleksandr, who is representative of the Ombudsman, handling the defense and security sector. Natalia Yashchuk is with us. She's coordinator of project management at CCL, Center for Civic Liberties. Tetiana Marina is with us, representing CSO Civilians in Captivity. We have with us Olena Tsyhipa, wife of illegally convicted activist Serhii Tsyhipa. We have Anna Mushtukova with us, so she represents the initiative group called Our Dearest People. And we have Victoria Petruk, Deputy Director of National Information Bureau, representative of Coordination HQ, and Oleksandr Pavlichenko, so Executive Director of Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union, and Yevhen Zakharov is with us, Director of Kharkiv Human Rights Group. So, first of all, I'd like to pass the floor to Oleksandr Kononenko, who represents the Ombudsman, and just two questions that go to you. So, at the Forum Ukraine 2024, the Ombudsman of Ukraine, Dmytro Lubinets, mentioned this, that according to unofficial data, approximately 28,000 of Ukrainian citizens are held in Russian captivity. And out of these, approximately 2,000, these are the elderly people, 65 plus. That's the age category. And actually, yesterday, the Ombudsman's office organized the first meeting with the International Platform for Liberation of Illegally Convicted Civilians held captives by Russian Federation. So I'd like you to tell us about this event, and I'd like you to tell us about the results of these meetings, please. So good afternoon. I'd first like to give you an answer. Speaking of this figure, 28,000 of Ukrainian citizens. I'd like to clarify, 28,000 of Ukrainian citizens, not just civilians, who are considered to be missing. even if you take the video, they clarify 28,000 of Ukrainian citizens that are considered to be missing. We speak about both civilians and military, and of course about children. This information is based on the data of the missing people, on the registry of people missing, who gone missing in specific circumstances. This is not the final number. It will grow, unfortunately, because we will enter some more data there. The important thing is that, well, first we have to advise it to our citizens, those who are looking for their like friends or family members. Please, first you have to go to national police agencies. You have to file a special application there for this information to be fixed in the registry, Unified Registry of Pretrial Investigations. Respectively, this information will be officially registered in the Registry of Missing People. So, speaking of the measures, yes, yesterday, well, we had the first meeting of an international coalition, let's say, to establish a platform on liberation of civilians. So we actually performed the fourth task of the presidential formula of peace. So this coalition, was established to bring missing kids back, and the same we started doing the same regarding the civilians. We think that this is quite a positive signal because it's important to stress that the problem with civilians who are illegally convicted, those who are actually victims of forced disappearances, involuntary disappearances, it finally is visible in international arena. So we can say, speaking of that coalition, except of Ukraine, there are co-heads like Canada and Norway already confirmed their status as co-leaders, and many other countries also expressed their wish to become part of that group. So approximately 50 representatives of various countries took part in that meeting in international organizations. I also can say that we'd love to, of course, to get first some public information. During the last negotiations we had in Qatar, there is some interest from Qatar. They expressed it to engage to this process, returning and liberating our civilians. Well, we think that the positive experience that we do have with kids, it may somehow help us and promote us to get the same positive results for other categories of civilians. I do hope that we'll have this positive impact. Another thing that people expected to get, like solving the problem of full engagement of coordination HQ to activities related to civilian captives. Well, it's unofficially, let's say, engaged. But I do hope that maybe even this week we'll finally sign the decree that we all know about, where the powers of the coordination HQ will be extended and people will have an opportunity officially, because currently it's happening unofficially, let's say. They will have a chance to officially talk to Coordination HQ, and not only when it comes to military who are missing, but also civilians who are held captives. Okay, so briefly, that's it. I'm ready to answer your questions. Thanks, Alexander. Now I'm passing the floor to Natalia Yashchuk. She's handling the issue of captive civilians for so many years. She pays a lot of attention to it. Okay, Natalia, tell us about your work, if you have any achievements or results, what the problem is about, like what the problem is with the captive civilians. Well, first of all, I'd like maybe to let's go back a little bit, like 2014. Let's go back to past, because this problem emerged not only in February 2022. Okay, so we have the war in Ukraine that started in 2014 when Russian military entered Crimea, when they occupied Crimea, when they entered the territories of Donetsk and Luhansk region. So I guess, well, maybe it's because I have this professional specificity. Everybody knows about these detention centers where people were tortured and kept and killed, basically. So these were the people from temporarily occupied territories. And we have so many statements and testimonies given of what was happening there. Unfortunately, on February 24th, 2022, this problem extended. It scaled up. So people within occupied territories, they started um, arresting these people. So we know the reasons why these were kept in detention centers. These were volunteering, searching for, let's say, medicines and trying to procure those medicines, providing food and water. Like one of really interesting examples in Hostomel, yes, what we had there, when a family, just an average family, they try to bring water to Bucha and help people. And they were detained. This is family of Serhii Lubich. Serhii was detained and his son was simply shot where he stood. These are the reasons, as Russians thought of these were reasons, they actually detained their people. So later they were bringing people elsewhere, like in Kiev region, they were bringing people to the territory of Belarus in Narovlia. And the whole world has to know about it. Belarus took actual part in kidnapping and abduction of those people. Second reason why these people, civilians, were detained, their active pro-Ukrainian position. They actually, Russians had somehow to oppress this resistance. Therefore, these people were taken, these were imprisoned and were brought to the territory of Russian Federation and temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. So such detention centers, we have more than 100 of these where civilians are kept and also the war prisoners. The conditions where these people are kept, it's inhumane because based on our data, these people are sick. We speak about tuberculosis. Again, based on our data, more than 20% of those illegally detained people, so no medical assistance is provided. Food, like nutrition, it's a horrible thing to speak about their nutrition and the food they are provided. So I guess the Coordination HQ can share the testimony and statements given by those who were liberated, and you'll have an image of that. You'll have an idea what's happening. So with the results and successes, as Andrei said, maybe one of the most high-profile cases that we had, a teacher from Brovary, Victoria Andrushu. A family started talking to us almost immediately, and we made a decision to bring it to public, the case, and we were like telling about it all around the world. Everybody knew about Vika, like almost in each country. She was illegally detained in the territory of, like in her father's house in Chernihiv region, Stary Bykiv, name of the village. From that village, she was brought to the territory of Russian Federation, to Kursk, where she was kept for more than 6 months. The tortures, the conditions where she was kept, everything she managed to survive. She testified. She gave her testimony officially, and I do hope that the International Criminal Court will take this case, will consider it, and those war crimes against civilians that were committed, I do hope that war criminals will be held liable. This is the key aim of our event. We actually want to present this to international community for this issue, for this problem actually to be heard. We want to tell about this as loud as we can. The terrorist state is holding civilians as captives now. Thank you. I'd like to pass the floor to Tetiana Marina. She's representing CSO Civilians in Captivity. Please. Good afternoon. I represent CSO called Civilians in Captivity. So this is a group which unites relatives of those people who are imprisoned by Russians, who were actually detained in a different way, including those relatives we know nothing about now. So our organization is trying to use different methods to tell about this situation, to actually make it public. We tried to help the relatives of missing people and those people who are held in captivity. We're doing everything for it. Our head, Katarina Yashchuk Malachova, and also Yulia Hrapun, they they're very active. So they're trying to keep this issue on the surface, and they're trying to retain this interest in the society, because what we faced, um, what we faced, this is a tragedy that happened to us. This tragedy, like, it's only our tragedy. Yes, society maybe show some compassion or trying to support us at some point, but some active steps to be taken, for the international community to be engaged, for this problem finally to be visible and heard in the society at a proper level. This is not happening today. We also had this problem that war prisoners who are liberated and return home, first of all, they don't know about this problem, just like the whole Ukrainian society. They think that civilians are treated much better, let's say, that there's better attitude, but it's not like this. Absolutely. Russians consider, Russians think that civilians with pro-Ukrainian position, it's like their own, it's their own will. So they were not performing the military order, so they were consciously supporting Ukraine and giving any information to the security service or to other defense and security agencies, like to the army. So they were doing it consciously. It's like their choice, it's their will, and the punishment must be harder. So it was already mentioned that they are kept in really inhumane conditions. Yes, it's true. Those people who are liberated from captivity, they testify. And when you listen to the testimony, it's impossible to listen to it. So quite often they're kept in the same clothes. So in the same clothes that they were in on the day of detention. No hygiene items, no proper nutrition. Sometimes they like spoil the food. I mean, Russians spoil the food intentionally. Our CSO is trying to present this issue, to ignite this interest in the society, and we're trying to help, of course. Thank you. Thank you so much. So now we want to have Olena Tsyhipa. I'm pass the floor to Olena Tsyhipa, wife of Serhii Tsyhipa, legally convicted activist. Yes, I will just agree with everything the previous speaker said. I just want to tell one thing. War prisoners and civilian captives, they all are in inhumane, horrible conditions. They are kept in inhumane, horrible conditions. Captive civilians, they have this pressure. They're pushed. They are humiliated. Serhii, as a writer and journalist in Novakhovka, which is still under occupation, the town, he tried to publish all the truth, to tell this truth to the world. So we realized that in the news since February 24th, nothing was mentioned about the town. We didn't understand why there was such a silence. Then we understood that simply no source. There was no source, like who would share. And Serhii started. He used his Facebook account and in Telegram channel. He started making posts. He got calls from 1+1 and other TV channels, and even from abroad. And truly, he was a bright example for people in occupation who are confused. He showed them with his own example that you have to resist, even in informational environment, because there was no weapon in the town. There were no military. We were left alone with occupiers, and Serhii, he did his big job. He gave an example, because he was defending himself in a way he could. Just like the lady said previously, yes, for spying as Serhii Tsyhipa, he was convicted 13 years of imprisonment. I could get the same verdict in anyone who's in occupation, like spying, because we all were like, I don't know, we all were spies. We all helped the army, with information. And now just leaving civilians without no support, this is unfair, extremely unfair. And, I had uh, I had this rage. I felt rage. I felt insulted. Why our state agencies and our government is not handling civilian captives. Now I'm not at that stage anymore. I shifted to another stage. Mental stage, mental condition. Thanks to the initiative of the CCL, what I'm doing, I'm bringing this exhibition to different parts of Ukraine called "Please Liberate the Birds." It's dedicated to all civilian captives. And what I actually face that in Ukraine, they know nothing of this problem that we have civilian captives. And I just want to say that civilian captives are patriots. They love their country. These people had nobody paid them, nobody asked them. They did it because they wanted to. And we simply cannot keep that in silence. We just have to scream, and the whole world should hear that screaming, and we will do that. And with this exhibition, I'm traveling all around Ukraine, and I do hope that I'll do it, of course, later in Europe. Now, only my friends help me with this, but everybody has to know about it. Everybody has to know about it. That aggressor state, ignored all Geneva Conventions. They ignore any logic and common sense. I was writing letters to Mushtukova, to the lawyers' chamber of Crimea. I tried to explain them that you cannot give this verdict and call person a spy, someone who lived in the country. Yes, we in our country can do what we feel that we should. We helped. We all helped as we could. And you have to speak it out loud, because we have to speak of that in those basements and detention centers, these people are humiliated. Serhii has this poem, and the first sentence starts with Ukrainian P, like it's about humiliation and torture. He's not using the word electrocution, that he was electrocuted. Yes, there is a poem about this as well. We have to speak about it. We have to fight for every Ukrainian citizens. No matter if we speak about civilians or military, women, kids, we have to bring everybody back. Yes, Tetiana said nothing about her husband. Mario is a Spanish citizen, but since 2014 he has been helping to kids in the Donetsk region. He brought some gifts to kids, like food, humanitarian assistance, and now he's basically missing. Yes, currently I don't know where my husband is. His last known location that was confirmed by witnesses, detention center number 2 in Simferopol. What I know, that in this detention center, certain documents, they tried to register some documents, and I had a call from lawyer. Maybe Mario was released. I had a hope that he was, but later there was a call at 8 a.m. As I remembered, he said no. In detention center, they had documents signed for Mario, and it means that he was brought from one prison to another. Yeah, and Chonhar prison. This is a new establishment. Still, it's not on the telecom zone. It's not in registries. It's not in archives. It's like a secret prison. Yeah, and I think that he was hidden. Yeah, to just to destroy all the connections with the other world. And what's interesting, I got from Chernomorsk prosecution office of Russian Federation a letter that it's that we know that on June 1st, 2023, Mariana Garcia, the citizen of Spain, crossed international border crossing point Jankoy, heading to Simferopol region. This letter is unbelievable. Russians think that Simferopol region is actually their part, that Crimea is a part of Russia, but the border crossing point is international. Yeah. Respectively, in that letter, they did not indicate how did he cross the border as a free person, or he was convoyed. I only know that convoyed at Chonhar, like we lost the trace. I'm sorry. I'm really nervous. I worry. Yeah. I don't have this experience of giving public speeches and with streams, but I really really want to tell not only my story that should be told. Actually, in our CSO, there's so many of us. More than 300 people, and this number is not final, of course, unfortunately, because we have other CSOs where people try to unite their efforts, those who have some captive relatives within occupied territories. We have so many new captives already. Those people, unfortunately, have no informational support provided by our CSO to us. And it's extremely sad. It's so sad that I'll use this Russian word. So basically, this is like negative progress, as Russians say, when it comes to the growth of number of captive civilians. Thank you, Tetiana and Olena. And before I pass the floor to Anna Mushtukova, briefly, I'd love to tell you about this initiative group. Okay, so called Our Dearest People. These are just like average people who gathered because they're united with the same suffering and strategy and tragedy. Before I pass the floor to Anna Mushtukova, I'd like to show you two short videos. How are they fighting for their kids? They're knocking on all doors. They're trying to get at least some progress, some positive answers. Please, if we may have the first video. Okay, so we have the video. So we are the relatives and family members of missing people. So we are here right now to ensure that public knows about this problem. We want to liberate the captive civilians. Captive civilians were held in captivity by the Russian Federation and due to their aggression. So we want to accelerate the process of their liberation and return, and please take all necessary measures. We want state power bodies to take all necessary measures. Due to the full-scale invasion of Russian army within the territory of Ukraine. In our community, since February 26, 2022, Russian army started massively abducting civilians, and this fact is a crime committed by Russian Federation. And Russian Federation must be held fully liable for it. Our key goal is to get attention from the international community and for them to know about the problem of missing civilians and imprisoned civilians. We want the world leaders to put pressure on Russia for them to return our people back, because these civilians were not threatening to the armed criminals. Moreover, Russian Federation is keeping those people in detention centers where these are tortured for us to be heard. So we have this peaceful walk, we have this peaceful march. Today, we have 25 kilometers walk during this march. So please liberate the civilian captives. Please liberate civilian captives. Glory to Ukraine and glory to heroes. Glory to Ukraine and glory to heroes. Glory to Ukraine and glory to heroes. Glory to nation and death to enemies. Ukraine is above all. I'd like to stress that people without experience and qualification, without special knowledge and even money, without communication, they don't communicate directly to international institutions, but they're knocking on every door. They're fighting, they're trying to get answers. So when you enter Dymyr, settlement, there is a banner there, yeah, next to the entrance. It says "Liberate the civilian captives." There are photos of people who have been kept like for almost 2 years in captivity. Please, I'd like to show you the second video, how these people are trying to liberate their kids and relatives. So they say they want officials to start talking to people. Now I'd like to pass the floor to Anna Mushtukova. And on the screen, we will demonstrate the photos while she's giving her speech. The banner will show the image of the banner, yeah? Okay, and the steps taken, please, yeah? Thank you. So, the video that was shown, that's when we tried to support our relatives. In 2 years, you know, we had so many public events held, you know, and we're still doing this because we don't know what other method we can use to help our captive relatives. We're trying to knock on all doors to liberate our dearest people. We try to talk to everyone where we could, like, we cooperate with the Coordination HQ on war prisoners. We're Dmitro Lubinets, Ukrainian ombudsman. We cooperate with him also. MPs of Ukrainian Parliament, CSOs, even the Embassy of Vatican. We tried to send our letters to the Pope, and we will continue to do everything before we get our relatives back from captivity. And I represent the initiative group. Today, initiative group of the relatives of convicted and imprisoned civilians. We called Our Dearest People. This is how the group is called. In our group, we gathered 89 families from Kyiv region. All of us are united by the same tragedy. Our relatives, all our relatives, are held as captives, and the majority are kept for almost 2 years there. All our relatives all of them are civilians. Each has a tragic story. For example, when Russian army was leaving Dymyr, many local civilians were arrested. In phones, sometimes in phones they found some like data. Someone was suspected to be like one was providing information to the army about Russian weapons. So they all were arrested, and still they are held in prisons and detention centers. From Dymyr community, Russians arrested 42 civilians. We know their names, all of them. We know all of the names. These were not military. These were not officers or soldiers, just average civilian people with civilian professions and qualifications. So they have their households. They were in agriculture, and they had absolutely no relation to the hostilities, and therefore, well, we talked to ICRC. We tried to talk to ICRC, and we received a response on 33 relatives out of 42 from Dymyr community. And in these letters and these responses, they say that these people are kept as war prisoners. We don't know about these convictions regarding the criminal offenses. We don't know if someone was convicted based on Russian legislation. Just to put it simply, our relatives are in very harsh conditions now. On the one hand, in Russia, they're identified as war prisoners. They are given the status, but they're truly not military. They actually are not military. So the protection clauses do not cover them as for the war prisoners, classic one. So we can't even we can't make it to include them in the exchange list. We can't publish the details because we can actually even do some damage to them. We know what we don't know. We don't know what to do. And we don't know what specific actions we can take. So we don't have, we can't write like official letters to them. We cannot send food or any other items like warm clothes. We cannot do it. That is why we, relatives of Ukrainian civilians who are illegally kept by Russia as captives with violation of Geneva Convention, so we claim and we encourage the international community and religious leaders and partners and Ukrainian allies. We ask all of them, everyone who takes care of our tragedy, who really is compassionate towards that. We want you to engage, and we want you to help us to liberate the civilian captives. I'm not a lawyer myself, but even I understand that such actions are illegal, completely illegal, and it's violation. And how to fight this? Where can I find truth? The most important thing is how can we bring our relatives back? By looking answers these questions, well, personally, I'm here now just finally to find a mechanism on how to bring these people home. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And finally, I pass the floor to representative of the state agency, representative of Coordination HQ for finally to tell us something about how can we bring our people back. Thank you. So truly, we do expect that soon we'll have amendments to legislation. This will be introduced, and the issue of missing civilians and imprisoned civilians will officially become the power and the duty of the Coordination HQ. But even without these changes, we were doing our job because we realized that every citizen of our country, one who is kept by Russian Federation in captivity, whatever we speak of, war prisoners or captives, these people must be brought back home. And that's what we're trying to do. We're working on it. Since the very first days of the HQ operation, we never refused to anyone, like any family, families of civilians and families of military. We tried to help if we could help. So within these 2 years, truly Coordination HQ managed to return 147 civilians. Miss Victoria also among them that Natalia mentioned. The teacher of university, Luhansk University, also among these. We have an activist, a lady, whose fault was just that she helped kids, and she was the volunteer in the occupied settlement. What we would recommend you to do now, first of all, as Mr. Kononenko mentioned, please first start talking to national police. Step into the procedure, take all the necessary actions. You have to submit a special application. Then the DNA sample must be provided, and you have to give all the information to investigator, everything you know. Then, talking to us to Coordination HQ, you have also to fill out an application to start searching for missing relative. Well, we already, it's highly likely that we already have some basic information about your relatives, but your application will help you to track any additional data if we maybe know something about the location, if one is registered as missing or war prisoner. It's important also to provide information to National Information Bureau, stay in touch with the Ombudsman's office, of course. If there are any questions related to interaction with state agencies, please, you're welcome to have individual consultations at our HQ, where we shall try to help you to solve your problems. Natalia asked to say something about the conditions, how the captives and war prisoners are held, in which conditions, detained by Russia. Well, Tetiana, Olena already gave a full picture, I guess, gave a full description of what's happening. Nothing good is happening there with people, so conditions are horrible. Quite often these are hidden in official detention centers and prisons. And nothing to add. I basically don't know what else can be added to that, to what Natalia and other speakers said. Of course, another horrible problem is the court proceedings and those trials, where civilians are given their verdicts when the trial is taking place, and when people who just help their own country get those verdicts. Well, those years mentioned in the like the years of imprisonment in the verdict, like according to Russian legislation, like 10, 13 years. This is horrible. Sometimes even 20 years of imprisonment and more. So this punishment is horrendous. But Coordination HQ is doing everything to return all our people, to bring them back, for the families to finally take them back, and for this horrible situation finally to be over. So I'd like to add, Andrei, I just want to mention another problem that we have during the illegal imprisonment with our civilians. I mean, as we know now, they are kept in horrendous conditions, but even there, they still commit war crimes against Ukrainian citizens. So forced issuance of passport. Okay, if a person if a person is brave and strong, if they can't do anything, the person is put to detention center with tortures. They torture the person by the moment when the person says yes and agrees to take the Russian passport. And we already have those cases. And people say yes, and what happens to them next it's a horrible thing. Thank you, Natalia. I'd like to pass the floor to co-founder of the initiative TVP initiative, Tribunal for Putin, the acronym. So the executive director of Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union, Oleksandr Pavlichenko. Greetings. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you today at this event, at this roundtable dedicated to civilians and their status identified as those illegally detained or illegally imprisoned. First thing, what I'd like to say, that this topic was there on the agenda starting from the first days of Russian invasion in February 2014. And this also took place in NGCAs in Luhansk and Donetsk regions. The first report that was made for those people who came through hell, it was mostly about the places of detention and conditions, the categories of people who were imprisoned or detained. Majority of these were civilians, and back then there was like a big picture. We saw this big picture, an repression policy. So problems were not solved back then, and we know so many of these Crimean cases, as they call it, majority of these. So the Crimean Tatars had these fabricated cases, Hizbut Tahrir, also the civic platform that supported the control and monitoring over elementary human rights protection in Crimea. So the first and the biggest problem that is there is the absence of efficient monitoring and control from international players within the occupied territories of Ukraine and the territory of Russian Federation, where civilians are brought to, those who are forcefully relocated. There's no such control from international institutions like ICRC, OSCE mission that actually has to organize these independent visits and to see who is kept, how, where, with which grounds. There are no other international institutions, and this is an indicator that simply just shows that the legislation, international legislation, is partially functional, yeah? And when we see those videos with visits of ICRC or images in Simferopol detention center, well, it's planted, you know, it's properly prepared and staged. Even when a person is presented for exchange, war prisoners and sometimes civilians, these people are prepared for exchange. They start giving them food, medicines. They start for a couple of weeks, they live in better conditions. And then when they leave, when these people leave, they make videos, and then ICRC representatives and OEC representatives start talking to them. Yeah. Respectively, they make a picture, a facade that everything is more or less okay. This is a problem which is unsolved, and I think that this is for our Ukrainian diplomacy. It's their task, and it's the state negotiation with these institutions. Actually, the duty of these institutions is to ensure that IHL standards are kept and met. So we can say that almost all the clauses of Article 8 of the Rome Statute are violated, because Russia initiated this full-scale invasion. But this simple statement will not simplify and make it easier for specific individuals, those who are suffering now. Sometimes they're kept in, quite often they're kept in such inhumane conditions. It's one of the key tasks for Ukraine, and that's what the civic activists, human rights activists are doing on both sides of the border. And first of all, it's about giving a chance to survive and stay alive till the moment when liberation will be possible, and do everything for that liberation to happen. A couple of bottlenecks also we have to pay attention to. First, status of those individuals in Ukraine and in occupied territories where they stay and where they're kept. And this is a different status. Even categories of civilians brought to detention centers and prisons is different. Our organization identified 6 categories. Security service up to 14 they gave us. So these may be representatives of former militarized formations, law enforcement, border guard service, retired even. Yes, we might have territorial defense. Those who were detained, for example, as they think for any for spying, let's say, those who were resisting actively or passively, or even those people who, let's say, have some business interests, negative business interests when it comes to occupiers. So they're trying to take their business and to affect them to transfer some assets or give some money. So there's like a whole list of those categories. All united by the concept of resistance, and completely eliminating the resistance, and in such a straightforward way, just with examples. So when they show how they punish civilians, that's how they try to intimidate, and they try to force the rest of people to stick to their orders. So this is what they started doing in 2014 in occupied territories, with overly harsh manifestations of so-called prosecution, even without the trials and without official procedures. Some people are actually become a part of this official procedure. They have the accusation, and they even get some lawyers that are appointed or not. They have some sort of trial or some procedures or processes, but this is just one thing. And I just want to tell you that up to a couple of hundreds of those people, we have not even thousands. there are much more people who just are hidden, invisible. Sometimes they don't even like names. They're registered not with names but numbers in different centers and in prisons, in NGCAs mostly. And I just want to tell you about another problem. We mentioned this establishment they opened in Chonhar. They relocate convicted civilians to NGCAs like Berdyansk, Mariupol, where they just become missing in the gray zone. They vanish. They don't even get into the system, which can give at least some trace, maybe just to identify the location, further location. It's like a dark hole, a black hole at some point. Because within the Russian Federation, no legal procedures basically are functional. So this is intentional relocation of people with impossible tracking. We can't say who is staying where in which conditions. They do it intentionally to establish full control, and it's impossible even to establish the personal data and number of those people staying there. Kept there, not 28,000, of course. Let's not talk about it. It's much, much more. In particular, those civilians. I would also mention one category of people, those abducted and relocated after February 2022. Those who were already kept in detention centers or were accused at GCAs, and the number of people who, as of February 24, 2022, were seized by Russian occupiers, 3.5 thousand. Some of them we managed to return. 2.5, 2.6 thousand are still kept within Russian Federation. So they have these additional trials, and they are imprisoned with also Ukrainian verdicts. These are Ukrainian civilians as well, and they are victims. They are also abducted by Russian Federation, and they were abducted while staying in Ukrainian prisons, but now they are illegally kept in Russia. So this is another category. Speaking of conclusions and recommendations, we're trying to provide legal support, even in NGCAs, and this is a big problem because Ukrainian legislation prohibits any activity and even money transfers to NGCAs. Even if you want to help, like, let's say, Crimean Tatars staying in, who are under trials and who need to get some legal support and aid because they are the party to a proceeding. So that's a problem. Like, how can we ensure that support? This should be a task for Ukraine. I know that Coordination HQ is handling this, but again, this should be one of the state policy blocks, and this support must be provided. This support should cover as many people as we can, those who are held captives by Russian occupiers, and humanitarian assistance provision. Yes, we spoke today that the need for medical assistance, need for proper nutrition, and even like basic like hygienic items and clothes, especially at early stages of detention when people are, abducted and relocated in summer clothes without. By the way, they even are brought to really huge distances to other parts of Russia where climate is different. This is another aggravating factor, and this is a human condition, Just the last thing. Identifying the status, it should be there. This is like a big comprehensive problem. So we have to create a registry. We have registries. 4 registries we have. These all are different with various numbers in these, and in different agencies and ministries we have National Information Bureau, we have registry of MOI. By the way, I am authorized by the OMI for that part of work. So the HK registry there is, and SSU registry, CSO's registries, but these are not basically registries, just the lists of people. And we need to ensure unification, okay, and harmonization, and we have to get verified data in one specific place to understand how. Well, first of all, what is the number of people actually is there, verified information where these people are kept, in which conditions, and establishing a mechanism, including international ones. We mentioned this first meeting of the platform, international platform, for international players to engage. Like Qatar is providing support to liberate our kids and return them. Maybe this mechanism can be also, we can have this functional mechanism regarding civilians, those who are held as captives. Thank you, Alexander. And before I start discussing it with journalists, let us pass the floor to Director Kharkiv Human Rights Group, Yevhen Zakharov. I'd like to mention that Kharkiv Human Rights Group is documenting war crimes since 2014, since the start of war. And I'd like to ask Yevhen how to find those war prisoners and civilian captives whose location is not known, and what can be the state strategy to liberate those people? Thank you for the question. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I won't have time to tell everything I want to tell, but a lot was already told. Just bullet points, okay? Yeah. First of all, when it comes to the category of civilian captives, the first category are those who were either arrested or gone missing, but got a status of individuals resisting the special military operation. They have it officially put like this, and they put this like label on people, and people are in prison because of this. But this is not a legal definition. In Criminal Code of Russian Federation, there's no such definition, basically. So this is nothing, zero. It's empty when it comes to, from the standpoint of law. These people are just imprisoned without any grounds, any justification. Second category, those who were imprisoned after filtration and failed to pass the filtration. So I just want to say that everyone who was forced to go to Russia, everyone came through filtration. These filtration camps, they took fingerprints, checking bodily checks and inspections, took copies of all the documents and so on. So they checked the phones and checked them on the lists. Those who were suspicious simply were detained, and many of these people were there. Detained people were kept in the camp for 30 days, and these people were like basically imprisoned in horrible conditions. There were these deep filtration procedures with tortures. If they managed to get through it, they were released. And those who didn't, in Donetsk People's Republic, there was such a status introduced of a prisoner by a specific decree. I forgot the name of that decree, but it doesn't matter. In April, and based on that decree, those people who failed to pass filtration, they got the status of prisoners, 10 years of imprisonment without any verdict. And these people were just sitting in prisons and penal institutions. Many of them, there are so many of them, like in Donetsk and Luhansk regions, in occupied territories of these regions. Third category, missing people. And they were kept with an A status, and still so many of them don't get like the status, and nobody knows where these people are. Some categories, Alexander mentioned such category as convicts and detained. Approximately 3.5 thousand were brought from Kherson region. Approximately 500 of these were brought back. Those whose imprisonment term is over, so we have a special association. They took care of that issue to help them to cross the border. The only border crossing point with the Russian Federation that we have still functional today, it was used. And that's taking place. From Kherson region, certain number of people with mental disorders were taken away. We don't know where these people, were they dispersed, if like, were they gone? Approximately 1,000 of single elderly people were taken away. They all were relocated to Krasnodarsky area, mostly women. And they are in such condition that they can't go anywhere to Russia, but they cannot even return back to Ukraine. So this is a separate group of people. And we can talk a lot about this. Yeah. What is important to underline? Those who are either detained in occupied territory or those who are gone missing, first they go to torture spots, as they call it, where they are kept these are, let's say, unofficial locations where people cannot be just kept. Horrible conditions. Over 100 of these all around the country. The HQ knows in Kharkiv region 33 torture spots we've studied. We know what happened there. People are tortured in the most horrible way there. So in these secret prisons, detained or abducted people stay there like for months in these conditions. In our database, TFP database, we documented 4,334. 200 of these are kids, minors. After that, some of them are, let's say, just released. Those people who are in really grave physical condition, with grave damage and injuries, and some are brought, let's say, to official prisons or detention centers, either to Russia or to occupied territories, where they are kept separately from Russian prisoners and Ukrainian prisoners, if it's happening in Ukraine. So they are not in official statistics, therefore. Federal penal system is not registering them. They have no data, basically, about them. And these people are imprisoned without any ground, with no verdict. We already spoke of some like trials, but there are not so many civilians. Mostly it's about war prisoners when it comes to trials. For civilians, it doesn't work that way. Without the trial, without the verdict, without accusation, without proceedings, Russia thinks this is okay. And this is a horrible situation that is completely it's unacceptable for us. So we have to start handling this. We have some joint actions, which is quite positive. What can be done? What we're trying to do. But first about figures. 28,000. This is like a general one. We need to separate civilians from war prisoners. Which civilians specifically, like with categories, okay? First thing. Secondly, there was such figure from HQ, 8,000 people imprisoned in known locations. A couple of thousands, we don't know their location. And these numbers are not fixed, like these change very quickly, quite volatile, because sometimes we even manage to find out where these people are. I heard this figure from the HQ. It was published. 40,000 of civilians in NGCs in Russia. Only 1,600 of them are verified. So we know where these are. The rest, we don't. Okay? Again, 14,000, this is not a fixed one. It's not accurate, so we can have more or less, but the location of war prisoners, it's easier to identify their location compared to civilians. It's a general fact we'll agree with. And 1,600 of civilians whose location is known, other was not mentioned. So our organization, Kharkiv Human Rights Group, decided that the first task that we have to perform today, try to identify the location of civilian captives, where they are. And of course, war prisoners, those whose location is unknown. But of course, it's harder with civilians. I mean in percentage. How we do it? So one well-known way just to interview everyone who were released at early stage, or if these people were exchanged. More than 3,000 already exchanged of war prisoners. 170 approximately civilians were exchanged in 2023. Yeah, 143 in 2023, yes. 612, then approximately, like, I don't know how many. There were different iterations, but now we have 165 civilians exchanged. You insist. Okay, you know better. Okay. I will not jump into discussion now, but different categories are assessed differently. Like police officers. For some, these are civilians. For some, consider these to be like war prisoners. Okay, 147. Okay, let's keep that. All these people tell who, where they were, and who was accompanying them. And it gives us extra information, yes? Like, let's say for those people who were kept in such a place in that period, that these people are still there. Another way that we use is to use open sources, and we have these smart people. They are very proficient when it comes to use of internet. So they're virtuosos. They're looking for information on internet. They can find a lot. Like one example, they take a photo of a missing person and start searching all around the internet to find the same photo. Maybe it was elsewhere, like published, and they managed to find it, that this photo was in the war prisoners camp, like someone put it on the internet on some day. And that's how they find out that this war prisoner that was missing, now they know the location. Then we check the location, we check the settlement or the location, GPS, what detention center is like located next to it, and that's it. I can give you other examples how it's done, but that is how we can find just location of some people. Third way, just like I found out recently, and the HQ is doing this, we send letters, approximately 50 letters per one person, 10 to Ukrainian organizations, 40 to Russia and these quasi-people's republics. Like, to understand where the person is, we try to send these requests and we get answers. I just have to tell you that in some cases, we have the verification of location. Just they responded to us, yes, this person is staying here. Like in 2 cases in DNR, these people were just liberated after our letters. And we had those cases as well. In some cases, they tell us, this person is in Russia, but we won't tell you where. Okay, this is a positive result. If a family thinks, doesn't know if relative is alive or not, but at least now we know that one is alive and in Russia, so we have to search further. So we launched this project that first of all sets an aim to establish the location. As many civilians and war prisoners to be identified in their location. First of all, help the families of missing people, because for war prisoners, they have, according to the law, specific privileges, but they don't get these and they need support. Social support quite often is needed. Second thing and third thing, we have other types of support: psychological, humanitarian, medical sometimes for those who were liberated. Those who were kept in prisons and their families, yes, we take care of this as well. And fourth, helping those who are convicted and stay in Russian penal institutions. And we just have to have to engage our Russian activists, our colleagues from Russia, our activists, human rights activists, who actually are capable of entering those penal institutions. Let's say officially talk to our Ukrainian citizens with a lawyer, of course. I will not give you the details, of course, how it's done. It's not needed. But we have to handle this as well. We have to support our Ukrainian citizens who were convicted with these stupid verdicts and statuses, like completely unjustified, staying in Russian penal institutions before something happens, like before the exchange maybe, or something else. So we have a hotline. We are criticized for it, by the way, by some colleagues, saying that we have already so many hotlines, why we need another line. Maybe they're right, we'll see. But I do hope that it makes sense, because if we get those calls and if we can get some new information, it's definitely a plus. And please use this hotline, all the relatives of civilians, if you don't know where your family members are, and also the families of war prisoners, if you don't know where your people are staying. We'll try to look for them. Of course, we can't give you any guarantee, but I just have to say that we managed to find one third of all requests that we got. Managed to find 1/3 of these people. This result can be assessed differently, but it's a result. If you want us to try to look for your relatives, please give us a call. Yeah, so you can find actually this phone. Yeah, it's easy to remember because easy numbers, the last 4 numbers of it, the date when the war started, the full-scale war. February 24th, so 080020 2402. So the operator will just stick to the questionnaire, basic questions in the questionnaire, so some contact data, you're in the person you're searching, and then our lawyer We'll call this person, and lawyer will get some additional information. Yeah, because hotline is a little bit more expensive. And there may be some additional questions there that cannot be asked in advance. Okay, so this is all from me. Thank you for attention. Please. Sorry for taking too much of your time, and maybe not in a very consistent way, but it seems to me that everything I told you was necessary. Thank you. Thank you, Yevhen. Please. I didn't answer the question regarding the figures. Well, first of all, just a couple of statements, basic ones. First, war prisoners, kids, and civilians. Civilians, it's the hardest category. And as of now, we have to say that Russian Federation is either not ready for negotiations, or negotiations are still ineffective because no results. These civilians are not released. Second, when it comes to figures, 28,000 of missing. It's about all Ukrainian citizens, military, civilians, and kids. And unfortunately, it's forecasted to grow. 1,000 and almost 700 of civilians. Regarding these, we have information that they are kept. 869 of these are confirmed by ICRC. The most important thing is to understand what's happening to them. Even if 14,000 of missing civilians, 16, the difference between those who are verified and their location is verified and those who are just elsewhere. The missing category is the category where we can have people who already are not alive and those who are staying alive, and exchanges of war prisoners confirm that. We have military, fortunately, even those who are considered missing, but they are returned alive. And those who are missing, and when it comes to 65, like the lists, Ukrainian citizen who is confirmed, Vasil Dmitruk, is verified, he is 71. The person who is kept by Russian Federation. And the Spanish citizen, he is over 70. 76. He's 76, Mario, that we mentioned. So we gave this list to Mushtukova. Ukrainian citizens who are considered to be missing. But these two facts just confirm that even in such age, why do you need to keep those people? And these accusations of resistance to military operation, well, it goes both to military and civilians. Mario had the same response in letter. He is held captive because he was resisting special military operation. The paradox and nonsense of this accusation is that how can citizens of a state, why should they not resist? How can they not resist? It's a paradox. The previous speaker said in Criminal Code of Russian Federation there is no clause for resisting the SMO. It's another violation of human rights. People are kept illegally, just briefly. Speaking of the missing ones, I'll continue. Truly, there is a number of initiatives that help us to look for those who gone missing, kept by Russia. Yes, the category of missing people, person never is missing literally. Something still happens. Our task is to understand what happened to person, and we cooperate with different initiatives, CSOs. For example, one of the initiatives, Search Captivity, is actually handling this. So we send requests to various Russian institutions and try to find people. Certain success we do have in this campaign, but still relatives do that primarily. Families do that, identifying and establishing the location. I just want to express gratitude to Alexander and add that why these people are kept 71, 76 years old. Yesterday I was told about a case when a woman who is 85, Ukrainian citizens, she came to Russia. She used this single border crossing. When to her daughter, she was not allowed to go. Russian border guard. You know what they told her? Because she is a threat to defense and security of Russian Federation. Like that. So basically what is happening with Russian security and defense sector if an 85-year-old woman can threaten it? I have this statement also, please. You know, within the last month, I heard this new definition called political sponsorship. On my own behalf, on behalf of my husband, and speaking on behalf of all the civilian captives, I give the statement to all the countries, and I ask all organizations and countries, please give me political sponsorship. Give us political sponsorship for our relatives to return. Feel the pain, please. Feel the pain we live in since 2014, since 2016, 18, since 2022. Please feel the pain. We are held captives just like our husbands, parents, children, because we feel their pain. Please help us to bring them back. Thank you, Ms. Olena. Thank you. So we have time for questions, journalist questions, and the statements which were not presented by speakers. Okay. We still have a little bit of time. Maybe someone has questions?
Thank you for your. Can I speak in English? Is it clear? Is it translated to the speakers? Sorry, my name is Lorenzo Cremonesi from the Italian press, Corriere della Sera. You know, the Vatican is very much involved in trying to help your people, your prisoners. I was trying now to write few lines to my newspaper, to the web, which is because you are really touching a very hot and very important, very human topic. But I'm very confused. So please try, I would like to ask you, maybe not too long, because then all this number, all this detail, we get lost. Can I ask you 2 or 3 questions? Because I have to write down a story that I don't know really how to build it up. If you can give us, so these 28,000 people, you say these include soldiers and civilians. Well, can we have an idea how many? An idea, vague. I'm sure you don't have a precise number, and how many. And then if you can divide between the people who were taken from 2014 up to 24 of February 22, and then later. Are you able to give us this? And also about the detention center, where are they? Because we understood many of them were taken in Russia, inside the Russian Federation. So how many are in the occupied territories, Donbass and Crimea? And then I had the last question, and which was these different categories you have, you know, and well, this is basically what I'm asking. But really, I'll help us to have a kind of general idea, because I'm really confused about all these numbers. Can someone give us some concise question? Thank you.
To better communication. This number 28,000 mentioned yesterday by Ukrainian ombudsman. It's the number of missed persons Missed persons means the person that they disappeared, so nobody knows about their current state and situation. Are they in life, or they are simply with the status of missed person, and they figure in the Ministry of Interior database. So when we may split among the categories mentioned by you, I mean the civilian population, the POWs, children's, well, we have very different proportion, but I propose not touch exactly this number 28,000, because it's just missed persons. We are speaking here about the civic population in detention places, and the different figures are about the exact numbers, because it's most disclosed, let's say, or non-discovered information, because more or less we have the information on prisoners of war. Well, and it's the issue of the headquarters, and Victoria knows exactly the number, but it's also not for the general public. Different. When we are speaking about the children, but deported children, but we are speaking here about the persons in detention. The person in detention, civilians, there are very different numbers. As Yevhen said, it might be about 14 up to 16,000, but it's not very, let's say, clear. And
sorry, these are 14, 6,000 children.
No,
because you say children.
All categories, and mainly the adult. Children in detention, you mentioned, or deported children, because we don't mix the different categories.
Yeah, Sasha. Yeah. Including about 200 children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I'm confused because, for instance, Mariupol. We know that the government and the Ukrainian authorities are talking about between 20 and 25 people killed. But we don't know really how many people are missed or are still alive in Mariupol. That's why, again, if I have to write a story now I'm trying to, put yourself in our foot. I have to write a story saying, denunciation of missed people. Can you give me 3 numbers that make sense and I can write it down? Because I still don't understand how many people are missed. You don't want to mention soldiers. You say that the soldiers are included in this number.
Yeah.
But then I don't know.
Well, I turn to one position. Well, it's officially established number that figures in the official database with the personal data. So, but the exact number might be much higher. You mentioned Mariupol, so it might be Mariupol was up to 100,000 missed person. Well, nobody knows, because many people left Mariupol. Many were killed without any traces, and well, it's other story. But we are speaking about the what exactly established, what is official statistics. And in these statistics, well, you may find very different categories, including the POWs, including the children, including the and some of them are in life, some of them are not, because missed person, no information on their present state. When the situation, well, I may give you one example when we are speaking about the soldiers. When, for example, the soldier or combatant was killed and no possibility to bring the corpse of the soldier, he's not considered as a killed soldier, he's considered as a missed person. Well, and he figures in these statistics as well. Well, it's just one example. What is in these statistics? And well, your question about the detention places, and there are official and non-official detention places. It's a separate topic to be discovered. As Yevhen said, more than 100 official and non-official, mostly non-official detention places were discovered on the territory of occupied regions of Ukraine and plus in Russia. Well, briefly like that.
У нас ще є запитання, будь ласка, або
Okay, we have questions or statements, please. I think that we didn't discuss the topic of what's happening at NGCAs and why the number of civilians illegally detained, those are captives, that it may grow, because we know now, for example, that from Mariupol, people who want to leave the territory, they simply cannot leave the settlement, and if they try, they're illegally detained, first of all. Secondly, at NGCAs, it's dangerous for people to stay, and they know about it. And when they try to leave the territory, they can even be detained. So we can't speak of any figures, just humans' lives. We can talk about people who are currently staying in danger in NGCAs. If that's satisfactory as an answer. You have to understand that we cannot split all of those staying in Russian prisons and NGCA prisons in Donbass. We can't split them into combatants and non-combatants. We simply don't know that, how many of those and how many of others. We cannot know. Russians don't tell. For Russians, for them it's not a war, it's a special military operation, as they call it. All POWs are not POWs, are not combatants for them. And they launch these trials and these proceedings. They have, they use their criminal code, just like ordinary criminals. They don't consider them to be combatants, and they can't get those convictions. Fourth Geneva Convention is not, they don't use these cards under Fourth Geneva Convention. We do, but they don't. They don't stick to the POW clauses of Geneva Convention. For them, these are not POWs. That's why it's so hard. And they give nothing almost to ICRC. A little bit of information, scraps. Only if those insist, just to get rid of them. You should understand this. ICRC can do nothing. They can't get information, and they can't give it to families. This is what we have. When it comes to those places where people are kept, we can clearly split this in two groups. First group of places where people are sent right after abduction or detention. Usually places completely not equipped for it, but sometimes equipped, special places. Former detention centers. Like we had it in Kupiansk, where there were 140 people, like the capacity for 140, but they had like hundreds more. And these people were tortured. It's hidden, it's concealed. Nobody told about this anyone. This primary detention, it's like almost half a year. It happened in these secret prisons. It's an important thing. You have to understand it, you have to identify it. and indicated. In Kharkiv region, we analyzed those torturing places. We know everything about them, where we were present. When these people later are transferred to stationary penal institutions or to stationary detention centers, permanent, not temporary, the same conditions like Russian prisoners have, but again, still these people may be tortured there in humane condition and so on. They are held separately from Russians, all Ukrainians, under the control of FSB, Federal Security Service, with no perspective. Nobody knows. Our people don't know, like, what perspective can be there. Nobody wants to exchange and liberate them. Maybe just accuse them of terrorist attacks or spying, and later a trial. But even not so many of those cases on civilians. This is what I can add. I just want to add another thing and pay attention. Even the UN figures on deceased civilians are different from the indicators. And UN says that it happens because today not all deceased people, we can't calculate all deceased people in NGCAs during hostilities. You can't blame us and you can't blame Ukrainian government. After we deoccupy Bakhmut, Mariupol, Avdiivka, it will grow. The figures will grow. What we saw in Izum when we deoccupied this, in Kherson, it's the same trend. Unfortunately, in future, we will get more and more of these bad news. Thank you.
The Red Cross is involved somehow, because you mentioned, first of all, some report by Red Cross in Crimea, in Simferopol, where they went and you complained that it was totally fake because the Russian pretended that everything was okay and it was not. So what the Red Cross is saying? Are they reporting to you numbers? Are they visiting? Let's put it in this way. Are you satisfied with the work of the Red Cross, which can be also a headline? I mean, are the Russians giving access to the Red Cross? Is Red Cross reporting to you in a satisfactory way?
International ICRC, as they say, they act based on principles of neutrality, impartiality. Yeah, we all heard those words. In fact, in Ukraine, they have access and they visit Russian POWs that we keep here in Ukraine, just to check the conditions, if they feel okay, if Ukraine fully meets the IHL requirements. At the same time, we can state that in 2 years of full-scale war, that Russia, first of all, does not verify it to ICRC, does not verify all the individuals one is keeping. It's a fact, because we know that there are so many more people who are held by Russia compared to that number given by ICRC. ICRC gives information to Ukraine. I can't publicly give it. Colleagues ask, what is the impact of the figure if it's verified by the ICRC and those not verified are kept in the same conditions? We'd like to believe that those who are transferred officially to ICRC as prisoners are kept in conditions they have to be kept in as POWs, camps, packages, letters from relatives, visits of relatives. This should be possible, but the same treatment to those who are verified and to those who are non-verified. Exchange of letters So it's confidential. ICRC is not giving any names. These are it only is happening between Russian Ukrainian Information Bureau. I mean the letters. They have this bureau in Russian MOI. So when it comes to ICRC visits, we know that they visited some places, but the number of those places, the conditions, we know nothing about those. So they assume that ICRC visited the prisoners, well, because they were fed better, they gave them a bath, some wash, again, they were preparing to ICRC visits. Just to understand how Russia treats the ICRC in particular, and relatives waiting for the news from the captives. I just want to remind you that we are almost over. We just have 3 minutes, unfortunately, and that's it. We'll finish. So, if no more questions, ladies and gentlemen, therefore, let me express gratitude. Just one, please. Yes, I'll use the occasion. I'll use these 3 minutes, and I want to add, just to conclude with a statement, why Russian Federation is doing this. One of the reasons that they conceal information about our relatives, civilians, and POWs is huge psychological pressure on civilian population, and on the whole society of Ukraine. This is the favor they do to our state, a favor, in capital letters, for us to feel confused, for us to feel intimidated and threatened. No, this favor will not work. This whole thing will not work. We do believe that armed forces will ensure a victory, and we'll get the victory. Please be very brief. This has to over someday. Okay, I'm from Magnolia TV, and I'm handling the search of kids, and we also handle the search of missing kids in occupation, those staying in Russia. So yeah, the question is, the publicity for such a sensitive topic as captives release, does it help or does it give harm? To keep silence or to talk. All these categories are different. When it comes to POWs, please don't give the details, especially for those who are released. Don't give the details of the imprisonment, because still there are some people. When it comes to kids, these cases must be public, especially about those kids where we know the location. If Russian Federation says, yes, we are ready to give people and we know where these are held captives, this must be public. It's a verification that Russia is committing crime. Speaking of civilians, yes, I think there is no one single opinion. 50-50. Okay, with Mario case, this is definitely a public thing. We have a civilian convict, Pokrovsky, a disabled person from Kherson. Petrovsky, I'm sorry. Yes, Petrovsky. And we can't keep it silent. The whole world must know about this. Yes? This person is just, yes, individual, yeah. Thank you so much. We are out of time completely, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, dear speakers, to Crisis Media Center, and stay safe.